Hello, squaddies. Welcome back to the podcast. This is the fourth time, Jesus, that I'm trying to record this podcast because the first few times new news kept on coming in and the podcast just didn't feel complete. And then the last time I tried to record it, I hit the button, but for some reason the sound was not recording. And because I was looking at my script the whole time, I didn't realize this. And so I basically did a whole podcast and it wasn't recording. So let's try this again, shall we? Literally, just in the last few hours, documents in the case between the nonce and his victim have been unveiled. As this commentator on Twitter states, the deal was for $500,000 and settled all of Guff's abuse allegations against Epstein up until that time. The nonce's lawyers say that this document shields him entirely from the current abuse lawsuit brought by Guff against him. That's because the settlement includes a clause which says that all potential defendants in lawsuits brought by Guff are protected from liability. Here's the exact language. Hereby remise, release, acquit, satisfy and forever discharge the said second parties and any other person or entity who could have been included as a potential defendant from all manner of action and actions of Roberts, including state or federal, cause and causes of action, common law or statutory, suits, debts, dues, sums of money, accounts, reckoning, bonds and bills. So to me it seems like they were trying to make sure that nobody else who was involved in this got caught out. And the commentator goes on to say, now the question is whether the judge will agree that this clause protects Prince Andrew. If the answer is yes, the lawsuit will be dismissed altogether. If the answer is no, the suit will go forward. The judge has the ability to reject this clause on public policy grounds. That being said, my legal interpretation is that this language is quite broad and inclusive. So it's possible that the judge will rule that it does in fact protect Prince Andrew. So I will definitely keep an eye on that, but as we expected, because they're so predictable, the UK press are using Meghan as a shield to distract from the nonce and his associates. Ridiculous articles coming out about Meghan's clothes, house hunting, and even Archie's school. They better not be trying to go for those kids. You think they would have learnt their lesson by now with Meghan's privacy case. If they even try it with those children, Harry will rip them 20 new ones. There are now more calls from military personnel to have the nonce stripped of his titles and articles swirling around calling for him to drop the titles himself in order to somehow prevent the Queen being humiliated, as if she shouldn't be humiliated already by the self-entitled son she raised, or rather, she failed to raise because he was raised by nannies like all of those children, and as a result they're all failures. If at all she wants to do one decent thing before the end of her reign, she will publicly call for his titles to be stripped herself. The nonce may be the Queen's favourite son, but if push comes to shove, the men in grey suits will tell Betty to throw him off a cliff. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're already having this conversation in the palace, because people are really starting to turn on Betty and ask, why isn't she stepping up? Because if this circus is still going on by the time Betty is gone and Charles is in charge, I don't think he'll hesitate to get rid of Andrew, what with him wanting a slimmed down monarchy and all. And in other The United Kingdom continues to be a mess news, former Labour leader Tony Blair was given a knighthood. The knighthood, of course, is the highest honour of chivalry, and it will be bestowed to him directly by the Queen. And Betty was getting dragged because of it, along with some other very controversial choices on that honours list. And what great honour did Blair do for the UK? He dragged us into an incredibly unpopular war, the Iraq War. It wasn't popular in the UK back then, and it has since become even more unpopular. Years later, Blair gave the Oscar performance of his life, crying crocodile tears, apologising for it, calling it a mistake, but then also going on to say that he would do it all again. There has also been a petition with hundreds upon thousands of signatures within the last 72 hours that is calling for Blair to have his knighthood stripped. Do you remember those pathetic petitions to try and get Harry and Meghan stripped of their titles that barely got a few thousand? Another really interesting thing about Tony Blair was what he wrote about Diana in his memoir. I'll link to the Guardian article if you want to read it in full. But he said about Diana, we were both in our ways manipulative people, perceiving quickly the emotions of others and able instinctively to play them. I mean, do you hear this? This ghoul trying to put himself next to Diana and then calling her manipulative. He goes on to say that her relationship with Fayed was, quote, a problem, and that this was not for the obvious reasons which would have made some frown upon him. His nationality, religion, or background don't matter a hoot to me. I had never met him, so if you ask me, well, spit it out. What's wrong? I couldn't frankly say, but I just felt uneasy. So he didn't know him and he just felt uneasy about him, and that definitely doesn't have anything to do with his own internal biases, no. When I think of what's been happening to Meghan and how the smear campaign went to the highest levels of the British establishment food chain, you gotta wonder how much went on behind the scenes back in the Diana years that we didn't know about because we didn't have social media. Oh, and also, not that it has anything to do with anything, but here's Tony Blair on holiday some time back with our favourite Rose. Moving on, Kate Middleton's 40th birthday is coming up, and so the Daily Mail gave her a nice puff piece to celebrate the big 4-0. Now, I'm not particularly interested in the article itself. What I'm interested in is who wrote the article. The article was written by Rebecca English, who is a royal rodent. She was given this as an exclusive, but if we go back into the time machine, this is the same Rebecca English who coined the term weighty Katie and spoke about Kate tightening her grip on William, making her sound very desperate at the time. But what's so interesting is if you go back to that article, Rebecca English's name has been removed, and so have the comments. So what deal was done to bring Emily closer into the fold, I wonder? Just something to think about, that not so invisible contract showing itself once again. It seems like everyone in this unroyal family is desperate for power, nobody trusts or likes each other, and they're going to destroy themselves. That's all for now, my lovelies. See you in the next one. Ciao.